Welcome back to Introduction to Java. This is day 7 of part 7. Today we're going to talk about for loops. So what is a for loop? A for loop in Java repeatedly executes a set of code a certain number of times. So for example, if you're practicing writing your name in cursive and you write it 3 times, then you just did a for loop because you did something, which is writing your name in cursive a certain number of times, which is 3 times. A little review on how loops will work. We talked about while loops a few videos ago, and for loops is very similar. We also have an initialization variable, which is creating a loop variable that changes throughout the program. It goes through a conditional, which ultimately stops the loop when it becomes false at one point. We have a condition which checks whether the loop variable is true or not and meeting the condition, and it stops the loop if it does not. We have incrementation, which changes the value of the loop variable so that at one point it will become false. So here's the syntax of a for loop. We have underscore for all of it, for, and then the initialization of the variable, the condition, and finally updating the variable. And inside the curly brackets is where we run the code for each iteration. So here's a little trick. Instead of writing like before, changing the value of a variable, we would have variable name equals var name, and then for example +1. That would be adding 1 to our variable name. However, instead of that, we could just have a shorthand version, which is the variable name ++. And for minus, it would be subtracting. So here's an example of how the for loop would look. We have for in I equals 0, I is less than 3, and I ++. In I equals 0 would be our initialization of the loop variable I, and we start at 0. The condition would be I less than 3, or while I is less than 3, we will continue running our for loop. And I ++ is a shorthand version of adding 1 to our variable I every iteration. And the next example below is for in I equals 6, I greater than equal to 0, I minus equal 2. Again, our starting loop variable would be I, and we create it as equal to 6 starting. Our condition is while I is greater than equal to 0, and our incrementation would be I minus equal 2, or the variable I subtracts 2 every iteration. So how would we apply this for loop to arrays and ArrayList? In our previous video, we talked about arrays and ArrayList, so if you have not checked that out, go ahead and do so. So what is a for each loop? It's very similar to a for loop, but is made for going through arrays and ArrayList. So here's the syntax. Like a for loop, we would have for in the front. However, we have the data type and the variable name, a semicolon, and then the variable name of our array or ArrayList. So here's an example. We have our array with the character data type, hence char, and then it's called letters with the values A, B, and C inside. We have for char C, semicolon, letters. That would make our variable C, that'll make our initialization variable C, and then it is going through the array's letters. And so whatever value that the C holds as it goes through, it's going to be printed out, as we can see in system.out.println. So for example, if we were to go through our array letters, it would be printing out A, then B, then C, because the variable C changes values every time, and it goes from the start to finish. So it holds originally at the start A, then it holds the next value, which is B, and then the next value, which is C. The same can be seen for our ArrayList nums, which contains integers. It's created as empty, and then we added the values 1 and 2. So now nums has the value 1, 2, and then we have for int num semicolon nums. So that variable num is holding whatever values inside nums. So when we print it out, we would be printing 1, then printing 2, because it would be going through the list of our ArrayList nums, and would be changing value every time because it'll be holding the value of a different element down the road. So that would be all for today. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe and check it out other videos. Thank you.